Yahoo Sports, the first to report that Oregon head football coach Dan Lanning getting a big pay bump and a 6-year extension that will keep Lanning in Eugene at $11 million per year, with some escalators too. Bonusers.
That's pretty good. He gets the nice 20+% bump, but the thing that Oregon gets too is they keep that buyout up high. Which if somebody's going to come try and poach their coach, it's going to cost you.
Yeah, it's going to cost them around $20 million to get Dan Lanning out of Eugene, and that is security for Lanning, who is now paid amongst the top 5 coaches in college football.
Rightfully so.
It is rightfully so with the work that he has done. His record, it speaks for itself. 3 losses in year 1, 2 losses in year 2, 1 loss in year 3. That's pretty good. Being the number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff, pretty dang good.
Pretty dang good.
And where he has taken this program on the recruiting trail is to the heights that it's never seen before. And Nemec had a really good article that he put up at SI.com, the SI High School, where he's, recruiting guy. And it talks about just the stability of Lanning in Oregon and what it means for the football program because of all of the upheaval that has happened over the last handful of years, right? He's got 3 recruiting classes without a dramatic shift. That hasn't happened at Oregon in a really long time, because you think of from Chip to Helfrich, and then you have Helfrich and the disruption where guys decommit and recruiting really wasn't at a great spot when Willie Taggart took over. Willie Taggart's there for 1 year, and then upheaval again. Mario Cristobal's only there for a few years, and then upheaval again, and it turns over. And so when you stack recruiting classes, everybody talks about this in recruiting, you got to stack classes on top of each other. Oregon has had the inability to do that.
It's momentum.
Because of the coaching changes. And I think one thing, if you take that a step further, that Lanning has done a really good job of, after year 1, Kenny Dillingham goes and gets the head coaching job at Arizona State. And it was like, oh boy, here we go. More staff turnover, more staff shakeup. Well, Kenny Dillingham was a fast riser, always has been, and it turns out pretty good hire for Arizona State.
Not too shabby. Where was Arizona State in the...
They were the college football playoff.
Oh, right.
But you think of this. Now you're going into year 4 with Tosh Lapoy on the defensive side of the ball. Year 3 with an offensive coordinator in Will Stein. That it's been a very long time since Oregon has held on to their offensive coordinator for 3 consecutive years. And then the trickle down to that, the staff turnover is not nearly as dramatic as it has been in years past. He's gotten good coaches in, and those are the important moves there because those are the guys that are actually coaching the players on every single day in college football. Your head coach, your relationship with your head coach brings you in, but your relationships are with your position coaches, your coordinators, and the strength coaches, man. And they have not had a lot of turnover in those groups over the last handful of years. And so you see he's built stability. He said he wants to be in Oregon. He wants to stay in Eugene, and they're rewarding him for it. And to think, this dude, remember, he's only entering year 4. His first year, $4.7 million. And people are like, whoa, that's a lot of money for a guy who's never been a head coach. Here we are 3 seasons later, entering year 4, and it's at $11 million. He's one of the top 5 coaches in college football on the pay scale.
It's worked out brilliantly for them. This is the single thing from the non-Duck guy on the outside looking in. This is the thing that I have said over and over and over again. Lanning has brought stability, leadership, and a mentality to Oregon that just wasn't there. I mean, I think the closest you could say that has been in the modern era was kind of the toughness that Mario Cristobal brought. And as far as like being good in the trenches. And that is a thing that Lanning has continued and grown. And that has been the thing that has pushed Oregon forward as far as the recruiting goes. Being elite in that world. And it's a belief that Lanning not only has, but exudes.
Yep.
And that is the thing that I point to over and over and over again about why my belief of what Oregon can be.
Well, and roster retention has been huge.
Immaculate.
Guys love playing for him, and they're sticking around. You're not seeing guys
who's left
transfer out. Well, I think like Amarion Winston, he transferred out. That was a surprise.
Yeah.
But I think that the guys who have transferred out of the program are guys that kind of see the writing on the wall, that the level of talent behind them is ramping up.
Yes.
And it's getting to a point where you go, all right, this is that competitiveness. That's a majority of guys that enter the portal across the country.
Yes.
Are guys that their coaches are sitting there saying, dude, mate, you might want to check out somewhere else so you can actually play.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to do and you want to play, you probably should check
the
something
talent coming in is beating out the talent that is going out. And that's the mark of a successful program.
Yep. Getting over the hump, that's what they're paying him the big bucks for. But Lanning sticking in Eugene, it is huge. His players love him. His staff absolutely adores him. I mean, and like some of the praise that, like old grizzled coaches, we haven't talked about this. Mike Cavanaugh, who took the Oregon State offensive line job, just a week ago. He said that Lanning's different. He's coached with a lot of really good coaches. He's been around it. He was always like, Coach Lanning's different. He has it, whatever it is, he has it, and that is a special thing. And what they've done on the offensive line, and they go and they get Cutter Leftwich, who's at North Texas, and they bring him back to Eugene to help Alik Terry in the absence of Cavanaugh heading up to Oregon State. That's huge for their staff. They got another, fast riser in the college ranks to come back and be the assistant line coach with Alik Terry. And then you also have, Dallas Warmack and Ryan Walk, who are former players at Oregon that are on that staff as analysts now. Like that, those things, and having a stockpile of good coaches, that starts with your head coach, man.
The continuity matters, and keeping guys in-house, not just guys that you hire from the outside and keep them and retain them, but those guys that you talk about as analysts. Because a lot of those times, those analysts, if they've got the goods, number one, they're an extension of your program. They know not just like the playbook, they know the culture. They like, there's an ethos that kind of comes through them as an extension of the head coach. It is an extension of the position coaches. And those guys, if they have the goods, they move up from analysts, and then they move up into position coaches. And that's how those guys make that rise, and they end up becoming lifers at your program. And that's the hallmark of stability. That when your program is built on that keystone of your head coach, and you can have turnover. You can be Saban and be the rehabilitation guy that gets massive, massive, massive hires and turns them out because everything else around them is so strong.
Yeah.
And that's what Lanning has done. Like, you go from Dillingham to Stein, and you really don't see any change as far as like drop off or anything along those lines. Like
production has been there
incredibly high, and that's the thing, because everything starts at the top, and it's it's not like trickle down economics, but it is like a trickle down culture, and that's the thing that you just look. There's only so many coaches in college football that have that, and once you have it, if you cannot let it go, you just can't, because that's what every team is looking for.
And Rob Mullins went and kind of put himself out there, hiring the 35-year-old who's a defensive coordinator and wasn't a defensive coordinator for very long. A ton of risk. And it has paid off in spades, and they're rewarding Lanning. 6-year contract extension for Dan Lanning. He'll get paid around $11 million a year, obviously pending approval by the Board of Regents. And then there's going to be escalators, and that puts him as top 5 paid head coach in all of college football, and it gives Oregon fans a little bit of comfort knowing that they're footing the bill, because that's a big change too with Oregon is they're paying their coaches. That always used to be the thing, is Oregon did not pay. They're paying their head coach, they're paying their assistant coaches, and they're reaping the rewards of it already. Now, I think also a thing that you hear Lanning talk about also quite often is he doesn't shy away from what the expectations are going to be when you are a top 5 paid head coach, when you are a program that recruits at the level that they are. He knows what the expectation is moving forward, because that's his expectation internally too.
The heat will be turned up.
Yep.
That's what comes with this contract. That's what comes with these expectations. But if you're Oregon, this is what you want. You want the expectations.
Yep. and they got him now.
Yeah.
And they got the coach. 6-year, $11 million per year extension for Dan Lanning. He's a damn good coach, man. And so pending the Board of Regents approval, he'll be in Eugene with a buyout that stays very high as well, which is good for Duck fans everywhere.